wasn't a surprise result, was it?
No, it wasn't. And obviously the results were massaged. There were no credible opponents. The press was entirely behind Putin. And there's a war going on, which generates support for the administration anyway. So yeah, the thing, the state of Russian public opinion was not accurately reflected in the announced results. But I think it's worth noting that what the results rather confirmed is that while 88% of the Russian people probably don't support Putin, there is still a significant majority of Russians who back him and back his war.
But would it be fair to say, without, wanting to have too much of an argument, dictatorship brainwashes people and you only end up... I mean, most of the Russian people have known no different, which is why I spend my entire time, Sir Tony, saying one thing and one thing only, which is the war in Ukraine is about all of us. Because if Vladimir Putin puts one foot outside Ukraine, not only is it our war, but if he is defeated and pushed back, surely that sends a message to the Russian people and that will result in, if you like, destabilising him in the long run. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if he loses the war, then I suspect that his presidency is finished. And actually, I suspect his life also would be in danger. But at the moment, the state of the war is that it's Ukraine that's on the defensive. So that is not an obvious route to getting rid of him.
And Vladimir, just to bring you in now, can you tell us a little bit more about the protests that happened over the weekend during this election, the protests that were done in the name of your friend Navalny?
The Russian opposition united behind the idea that people should come to the polling stations exactly at noon to show cues and to express their dismay at the war and Putin's dictatorship. It was sort of a legacy of Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader who died in prison a month ago. And in London, there were queues that were stretching from Notting Hill Gate to Lancaster Gate. So for more than 1 kilometer, queues of people who wanted to vote at Russian embassy to vote against Putin.
Vladimir, great to have you on. Maybe a slightly strange question, but I want to ask it of you, an ally of the incredibly brave Alexei Navalny, who, as you said, died a month ago, and everybody will have their opinions. As a detractor, naturally, from my point of view, of this Russian system, dictatorship, Putin, do you live in total fear, all of you, that if you dare to stand up, whichever country in the same thing could befall you? Are you united in a belief that you must keep to your values and that one day this man will be removed? Because this man is a menace, isn't he, without any shadow of a doubt. Do you believe that you can change the system in the long run?
Indeed, I think people across the world don't really realize the hazard that Putin presents, not just to Russia, not just to Ukraine, but to the whole world. And it's important that everybody who thinks about the future of humanity, does even a little bit to bring forward the day when Putin's regime ceases to exist.
And Tony, it says here that 114 million people were eligible to vote and the turnout was 67%. That's an incredible number. Just how much do you think that Russian state media is really controlling the narrative and controlling Putin's reputation in Russia? Because clearly he's such an unpopular figure worldwide, but not necessarily in Russia.
Well, firstly, I think your figures are a bit behind the time. The number is 77%. And yeah, it's, they get everybody out, they pressurize people to vote. Probably the electronic ballots are fiddled with. The number is greatly exaggerated. There's not that amount of enthusiasm for Putin in Russia. But I repeat, the authorities were given a task. And this isn't an election in the way that we in the West think of elections, where there's a winner, where there's a possibility of the regime losing. This was an affirmation of national solidarity behind Putin and his regime. And in those terms, I mean, from the point of view of the West, it is a complete sham. But from Russian point of view, it worked. The Russians will go back to work tomorrow, today, feeling that they are united in support of the war. Now, there are people who are not in support. Alexei Navalny, who I knew well and was a great, great man, still retains a lot of influence and support.